August is the month most gardeners quietly lose half their tomato harvest. Not to bugs, not to disease, but to one thing they don't do. One simple cut they never make because nobody ever told them to. And the result is the same in gardens all over the country right now. A huge, tall, green, healthy-looking tomato plant, absolutely loaded with tomatoes that never ripen before the season ends. The first frost comes, the plant dies, and you're left pulling off buckets of hard green tomatoes that never had a chance. And here's the hard truth. That plant wasn't failing. You were feeding it and watering it and doing everything you thought was right. And that was exactly the problem. Because in August, a tomato plant does not need you to help it grow. It needs the opposite. August tomato care is not about pushing more growth. It is about forcing the plant to stop growing and start ripening, to pour every last bit of its energy into the fruit already on the vine before the clock runs out. Think of it like this. All summer, your tomato plant has been an ambitious young thing, growing tall, reaching for the sun, throwing out new flowers everywhere, convinced it has all the time in the world. And for months, that was exactly right. But August is the moment the season quietly turns, and the plant doesn't know it yet. It keeps behaving like it's June, pouring itself into new growth, when what it should be doing is racing to finish. Your job in August is to be the plant's calendar, to step in and tell it, with a few simple cuts, that the season is ending and it's time to bring the harvest home. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what your tomatoes need in August, the one cut that most gardeners get completely wrong, and the handful of things you do alongside it to bring in the biggest, ripest harvest your plants have ever given you. Before we start, drop your US state or your USDA zone in the comments right now. August tomato timing is completely different in Zone 4, where frost comes in September, than it is in Zone 9, where you've got months left. I want to make sure everything I tell you today actually applies where you're growing, and I read every single one. Let's go. Number 1, and this is the big one, the thing almost everyone gets wrong. You need to top your plants. Topping simply means cutting off the growing tip at the top of each main stem. And I know every instinct in your body screams not to do it. That plant is tall and thriving and still climbing, and cutting the top off feels like sabotage. But here's what's actually happening. A vining tomato plant will keep growing taller and keep making brand new flowers right up until frost kills it. And here's the problem. A flower that opens in mid to late August in most of the country will never have time to become a ripe tomato before the season ends. The plant is spending its energy building new stems and new flowers that are going to die green. Energy that should be going into ripening the tomatoes you already have. When you cut off that growing tip, you slam the door on new growth, and the plant redirects all of that energy downward and inward into swelling and ripening the fruit that's already there. Your existing tomatoes ripen faster, bigger, and more evenly. That single cut is the difference between a plant full of green tomatoes at frost and a plant that actually delivered its harvest. And making the cut is simple. Follow each main stem up to the top and use clean, sharp pruners or scissors to snip it off just above the highest leaf cluster you want to keep. You're removing the soft, actively growing tip, maybe the top few inches of new growth. Do it on every main climbing stem the plant has. Don't worry about being surgical. The plant is far tougher than you think, and within a few days you'll actually see it stop reaching upward and settle into ripening mode. If it makes you nervous, you can top it in stages over a week rather than all at once. Either way, that growing tip is the switch. Cut it, and you flip the whole plant from grow to finish. Now, the timing matters, so listen closely. You top your plants about 4 to 6 weeks before your first expected frost. That's why I asked for your zone. In the cold north, that clock is ticking right now in August. In the warm south, you may have weeks to go yet. Find your average first frost date, count back 4 to 6 weeks, and that's your window. And one crucial distinction, this is for indeterminate tomatoes, the tall vining types that keep growing and producing all season. If you're growing a determinate or bush type tomato, the kind that grows to a set size and sets all its fruit in one big flush, you do not need to top it because it naturally stops itself. So know which type you have. If it's a vining tomato that's been climbing all summer, topping is the single best thing you can do for it in August. Tell me in the comments, how tall did your tomatoes get this year, and are they loaded with green fruit right now? I want to hear it. Number 2, pinch off the new flowers. This works hand in hand with topping, and it's the same logic. Go over your plants and remove any new flower clusters that are forming. I know it feels wrong to pull off flowers, but every one of those late blooms is a promise the plant can't keep. There simply isn't enough season left for them to turn into ripe tomatoes. Every flower the plant is trying to feed is stealing energy from the fruit that can actually finish. Pinch them off, and you send one clear message to the plant. Stop starting new projects and finish the ones you've got. This one small habit noticeably speeds up how fast your existing tomatoes color up. Number 3, strip the lower leaves. By August, the bottom third of most tomato plants is a mess of yellowing, spotted, tired old leaves, and they're doing more harm than good. Remove them. There are two big reasons. First, airflow. Late summer is peak season for tomato diseases like blight and leaf spot, which thrive in warm, humid, crowded conditions, and they almost always start on those low leaves closest to the soil where water splashes up. Clearing them opens the plant up, lets air move through, and dramatically cuts the chance of disease tearing through your crop in the home stretch. Second, those old lower leaves aren't contributing much anymore, so removing them pushes even more of the plant's energy up toward the fruit. Strip everything below the lowest cluster of tomatoes and get those leaves up off the ground and out of the garden. Don't leave them lying there to spread disease. If this is already making sense, hit the like button right now. It tells YouTube to show this to another gardener who's about to lose their crop to blight this month. One tap. Number 4, ease off the nitrogen and feed for ripening instead. Here's a mistake that quietly undoes everything else. Gardeners keep hitting their tomatoes with the same high nitrogen feed all the way into fall. And nitrogen, remember, drives leafy green growth, which is the exact opposite of what you want in August. The last thing you need now is a burst of new foliage. You need ripening. So stop the nitrogen. What genuinely helps at this stage is potassium, the nutrient that supports fruiting and ripening and fills the tomatoes out fuller and sweeter. A feed higher in potassium or a spoonful of sulfate of potash worked in and watered around the base supports the plant through the ripening push far better than a nitrogen feed that just tells it to grow more leaves. Grow the plant with nitrogen earlier in the year. Ripen it with potassium now. That switch is one more thing most gardeners never make. And you'll notice the difference in the fruit itself, not just the speed. Tomatoes finished on potassium rather than pushed on nitrogen come in fuller, firmer, deeper in color, and better in flavor because the plant is finally putting its sugars into the fruit instead of into another flush of leaves. This is the quiet reason a gardener's late summer tomatoes so often taste better than the ones from early in the season. Not luck, but the plant, at last, doing the one job you've now told it to focus on. Number 5, water deeply and consistently and never let it swing. August heat is brutal, and the single fastest way to ruin a beautiful crop of nearly ripe tomatoes is inconsistent watering. When a plant gets bone dry and then suddenly gets a big drink, from you or from a late summer storm, the fruit swells too fast and the skins split and crack right open, and a cracked tomato rots or gets invaded within a day. On top of that, erratic watering is what causes blossom end rot, that ugly sunken brown patch on the bottom of the fruit. The fix is simple. Water deeply at the base on a steady schedule and mulch around the plants to hold that moisture even and stop the soil from drying out between waterings. A few inches of straw, shredded leaves, or grass clippings around the base makes a real difference here. It keeps the moisture in the soil steady, keeps the roots cooler in the heat, and stops hard rain from splashing soil and disease up onto the plant. In the swing from a scorching dry spell to a sudden August downpour, that steady buffer of mulch is often the only thing standing between you and a whole truss of split fruit. Deep and consistent beats a little bit here and there every time. Steady water through August is what carries your fruit to the finish without splitting. Number 6, hold your heavy plants up off the ground. By August, a productive tomato plant is carrying real weight. Pounds of fruit hanging from stems that were never built for it, and after you strip the lower leaves and the plant leans, those bottom clusters can end up resting right on the soil. A tomato touching the ground is a tomato that rots or gets found by slugs and pests before it ever ripens. So go around and firm up your stakes, cages, or ties, and lift any drooping, fruit-laden branches up and secure them. Get that fruit up into the air and the light. It's a 5-minute job that saves the very tomatoes you've spent all season growing, right at the moment they're most valuable. Number 7, and this one surprises people, protect your fruit from the brutal August sun. It sounds backwards because tomatoes love sun, but once you've stripped leaves and opened the plant up, tomatoes that were shaded all season are suddenly exposed to intense, direct afternoon heat. That can cause sun scald, pale, papery, blistered patches on the fruit where the sun literally cooks it, and scalded spots rot fast. In the hottest zones especially, during a savage heat wave, it's worth draping a light shade cloth over the plants during the harshest afternoon hours, or leaving just enough upper leaf cover to dapple the light onto the fruit. You want airflow and ripening? Yes, but not your almost ripe tomatoes baking bare in 100-degree sun. Balance is the trick. Number 8. And this is the honest limits part, because I'd rather you trust me than come back disappointed. Topping and pinching won't perform miracles on a plant that's already lost to disease. If blight has taken your plant, this is damage control, not a cure. Don't top too early, either. If you cut the tips in the middle of summer when there's still plenty of season left, you'll cut off productive growth you actually wanted. This is a late season move, tuned to your frost date. And if you're in a long, warm season zone with months of growing left, you may not need to top it all yet. You've got time for those new flowers to finish. This isn't about blindly hacking your plants. It's about reading the calendar and redirecting the plant's energy at exactly the right moment. And one last thing, because the season will end no matter what you do. When that first frost is finally about to hit, don't lose the green tomatoes still on the vine. Pick them all before the frost kills them and let them ripen indoors, on a counter or wrapped in paper in a box somewhere cool, and they'll color up over the following days and weeks. A frost-killed green tomato is a loss. A picked green tomato is just an almost ripe one waiting its turn. And keep picking your ripe ones promptly all month, because a tomato plant keeps pushing to finish its fruit when you keep taking the ripe ones off. Before the recap, let me answer the questions I know are coming. Will topping reduce my total number of tomatoes? No, you're not removing fruit or the flowers that had time to finish. You're only removing new growth that couldn't have ripened anyway, and you're helping the tomatoes you already have get bigger and ripen faster. You end up with more usable fruit, not less. Is it too late if my plants are already huge and overgrown? Not at all. August is exactly when you rein them in, and an overgrown plant benefits from topping and leaf stripping even more. Does this work on cherry tomatoes? Yes. If they're the vining, indeterminate kind, the same logic applies, though cherries ripen so fast that in a long season you may not need to top them as early. What if I don't know my first frost date? Look up the average first frost for your area, or drop your zone in the comments, and I'll point you in the right direction. It's the single most important number for timing all of this. Should I still be fertilizing at all in August? Ease off nitrogen entirely. A potassium-leaning feed is fine to support ripening, but mostly the plant needs you to stop pushing growth now. My tomatoes are ripening so slowly. How do I speed them up? Topping, pinching the flowers, easing the nitrogen, and a little patience. Heat above the mid-90s actually stalls ripening, so in a brutal heat wave they'll catch up once it cools. Will removing leaves hurt the plant? No, as long as you leave the healthy upper canopy that shades and feeds the fruit. It's only the tired lower leaves you take. Can I do all this to determinate bush tomatoes too? Well, you can still strip lower leaves, water consistently, and support them, but skip the topping, since bush types stop growing on their own. And what do I do with all the green tomatoes at the end? Pick them before frost and ripen them indoors, or use them green. Fried green tomatoes and green tomato relish are worth the search. Do I need to top my tomatoes every single year? In cold and medium zones, yes. Treat it as a yearly late season move. In very warm, long season zones, you may rarely need it at all, so learn your frost date once and it tells you the answer every year. And should I save seeds from these tomatoes? You can, from open pollinated or heirloom types. Scoop them out, ferment the seeds in a little water for a few days, rinse and dry them. Just know hybrid tomatoes won't come back true, so save seed only from heirlooms. Here's your complete August tomato checklist before you go. Top your indeterminate plants, cut the growing tips, about 4 to 6 weeks before your first frost. Pinch off any new flowers that won't have time to finish. Strip the tired lower leaves for airflow and to fight late season disease. Stop feeding nitrogen and switch to potassium to support ripening. Water deeply and consistently, and mulch so your fruit doesn't split. Know your type. This is for vining tomatoes, not bush types. And when frost finally threatens, pick every green tomato and ripen them indoors. August is not the month to grow your tomatoes bigger. It is the month to make them finish. Because the gardeners who bring in the biggest harvest aren't the ones with the tallest plants. They're the ones who told the plant, at exactly the right moment, to stop growing and start ripening. Subscribe right now if you haven't already, hit the bell, and drop 2 things in the comments before you go. What state or zone are you gardening in? And how are your tomatoes looking this August? Loaded with green fruit, splitting, or finally ripening? I read every single comment, and your answers shape the next video directly. Next time, I'm going to show you the one thing your pepper plants need in late summer to push out a final heavy round of fruit before the season ends. The simple move most gardeners never make. See you there.